Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a hypnotherapy session for driving anxiety with our client who is on the screen now. And hello again, because I'm here doing a voiceover. I want to use this video to show you two important things, and if I don't do a voiceover it will just be a bit confusing. So the first thing I want to show you is how driving anxiety has nothing to do with driving. I say this in all my videos, and you're going to see an excellent demonstration here of how we quickly go from driving to something totally unrelated. The second point I'd like you to notice is how this is quite a different kind of therapy to what most people expect, because it's not about me talking more than I'm talking now. Notice how little I talk in the session, and notice how the client comes up with the answer. And it's not about closing your eyes and relaxing and all this stuff. That's not what hypnotherapy is about, not true hypnotherapy. So let's play the video and let's get started, and I'll just pause and I'll share some hints and tips with you when necessary. Now I know you can't see me because I'm just here in the background. The client can see me, but the main focus is on him because he is more important than me. So first of all then, you know that this is being recorded. Yep, and are you happy for this to go on YouTube?
Sure.
Or my website or anywhere it ends up? Probably it's YouTube. Yeah, so with that said, now I know we spoke about this, was it 2 days ago? We did the consultation. Yeah. So unfortunately we have to go over it again because that's the way it works. You can't just jump back in straight away. Now, just to clear up the point here, you can actually jump back in. There is a way you can do it, but I wanted to demonstrate this, and I find it better if you just talk through the problem, because we've done a consultation 2 days before this, but it just helps, especially for the sake of this recording and demonstrating to people who maybe haven't watched the consultation. We're just going to go over the problem, and this is important because this is going to start to bring up the thoughts and emotions and feelings that we need to work with. So pretend that we haven't spoken before. Notice the slight intake of breath there from the client. So this is the kind of therapy I do. It's not just like, say, your basic hypnotherapy. This is an advanced level that I do. And you can tell already the client is taking a deep breath in. He's getting ready for something. And you might also notice, you think, well, I'm laughing a bit. Please understand, this is a big thing for me. There are not many therapists that are brave enough to film themselves and pull the video out there and let the world watch them working. I wonder why that is. I wonder what they're hiding. It's the same for my driving lessons. When I worked as a driving instructor, I was one of the first, if not the first, to put myself online doing lessons. So please understand, this is quite a big thing for both of us to do. And I've just met you. So what is the problem?
I have anxiety driving down hills in cars.
So a very short, simple explanation there, but that's not the problem. That isn't what we're going to work on. That's just a symptom. So if you don't know from my other videos, your driving anxiety is just a symptom of another problem. It's not the actual problem itself. So if you work on the driving, you'll get nowhere because it's nothing to do with driving. Driving lessons won't help. Driving courses, anything like that won't help. Let's go on with the session, and I will avoid pausing as often as I can, but there are some important things I need to share with you. So, what happens then when you go down a hill?
Okay, so if I'm driving and then even when I start to see the hill, I feel like my heart rate increases dramatically. My hands start sweating profusely. I have to constantly dry them off on my pants. And I just, in my mind, my brain starts saying, oh man, we're going to be out of control. Oh man, this is dangerous, and we're not going to be able to stop, and that we're going to keep going faster and faster, and we won't be able to stop, and we're going to die in a car accident.
Yeah. So I know I mentioned this before, but just briefly, when did this begin?
So it began I would say about 10 years ago, roughly. And yeah, so it's been going on for about 10 years. And I can identify that it is somehow related, maybe not completely only related, but it has something to do with, I went down this water slide with my wife on a vacation, and I'm not someone who regularly goes down these things. I would say I hadn't been on a roller coaster or anything of that sort for decades. And I'm somebody who was always kind of scared of heights.
So I'm just going to pause there because there's a few things I need to say. First of all, notice how little I'm speaking in the session. I'm going to put a chart up, like a graph on the screen now, which shows you the audio, and look at the comparison between the client at the top and me at the bottom, and I'm hardly speaking at all. That's how advanced therapists work. We don't do the talking. If your therapist is talking more than you, something is seriously wrong, okay? Because you are the client, you are the star, you have the problem, you have the solution. It's all about you, not about me. So if your therapist is blah 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 blah, and you can't even get a word in, that is very wrong. And I know I'm talking here a lot, but I need to explain these things. This isn't therapy I'm doing right now. The other thing I like to explain is what's going on here, because this is where a lot of people go wrong, and I've mentioned this many times before. People will say, I've got this problem driving downhill, but I know what's causing it. It's because I went on this water slide years ago. I can promise you that's not what's causing it, and I said this in the consultation before we did this session. That was done 2 days before the session. This is what we call, in sort of classical therapy, which I trained in to begin with before going on to more advanced stuff, this event is what's known as the activating event. So what happens is, there are two events normally. There is the activating event, which actually kind of loads the program, but before that there will have been a sensitizing event, which actually installs the program. So you install the program, and then years later it activates. The mistake a lot of people make, both clients and therapists, is that they work on the activating event, which isn't the problem. So this stuff about the water slide is when his problem kicked off, so to speak. It's when it began, it's when it started, but he already had it for a long time before that. So our job in this session is to find out what actually gave him the fear in the first place. And notice he's just said something about he already had a fear of heights. So we're going to continue now, but there probably will be another version of this video without the commentary, so if you want to watch it in full, I may put that up. But it's really important that we analyse this, and I'm also doing this so I can see how I can improve. I like to look back and see how I can do better.
Didn't like those sorts of things. Anyway, my wife convinced me to go down a water slide. We went down the water slide, and as we were going down it, and it was, very fast and steep drops and all of that, I felt like we were completely out of control.
So notice this theme of control keeps coming up. And before I talk about that, there's one thing I just thought to myself, is when I said about filming my sessions and my videos. When I trained to become a therapist, I got what's apparently the top award in the UK, the best you can get, which is apparently equivalent to a foundation degree. And one of the questions they asked me was, how do you plan to monitor your own standards as a therapist and to continually improve once you've qualified? And my answer was, I'm going to make YouTube videos and put them out there for the whole world to comment on. And they said, oh, you can't do that. And I had a phone call, please do not ever do this. You must not make YouTube videos about hypnosis. You must not give away the secrets. What a load of absolute rubbish. All these people who, sometimes when you do a session, you'll see therapists and they might have things in the background like this, I don't know what this is, but they'll have all these fancy awards in the background about, I've done this course and this course and this course. Those are the people who don't have a clue what they're doing. Right, I don't go for any of that rubbish. I believe in putting myself out there and getting proper feedback. So I'm doing this to help educate people on therapy. And I don't want to be one of these therapists who hides behind, oh, it's GDPR, it's privacy laws. The client said he agrees for me to film this. So just a point, if you do want to choose a therapist, look for one who's brave enough to put videos of themselves online. Now, back to the important point. Sorry, I want to be off on a rant there. But this concept of control. So control is what we call a concept, because it means different things to different people. So what is control? Because it's like love. People say, I want to be loved. I mean, what does that mean? Some people will call that a relationship with a partner. Some people would mean family love or friends loving them. For some people, it could be a pet that loves them. What is love? What's control? We can't just assume that we know what control is. So we need to clarify what this is, and this thing about control becomes very important later on. But let's continue.
I guess is normal in those sort of things, but still, for me, I feel like it made me extremely scared, and that feeling of being out of control is the feeling that returns to me as I'm driving down a hill. It starts to.
Did you hear what he said then? That feeling of control, whatever he said, returns to me when I'm driving down a hill. Maybe he didn't even know he's saying that, but he's just said what it is. The feeling returns to him, but it's not belonging to driving. It doesn't belong there. It's the wrong feeling in the wrong place.
Build as soon as I see the hill, and then it completely takes over, and it makes me just want to, pull over or, apply the brake really hard and go, inch down the hill or something like that.
Yeah. So you may notice as well that he's talking a lot with his hands. I'll mention this later on, but you might, if you've seen the consultation we did, there's a bit where I said boom, 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 jackpot. I'll talk about that later, as long as I remember. And if I forget, I'll put it in the description. You've never liked things like roller coasters, things like that. So, what makes you not like them?
I think it's the feeling of being out of control.
Control, control, control. Do you notice a theme coming up here? So you don't like being out of control?
Yes, yeah. Yes, it's true. I don't like being out of control. And
did you notice something there? Did you notice the way when he said that, he said it slightly differently? I'm going to run it back. And this is one of the things I do. Like I say, it's different to many therapists who will just read you a story about unicorns and pixies and all that. Like, it's supposed to somehow access your subconscious, which is just rubbish. Okay, listen to how he says this thing about control.
Yes, it's true. I don't like being out of control.
Did you spot it? I'll play it one more time, and then I'll tell you what it is, and you can listen again.
Control.
Control, control, control.
Yes, it's true. I don't like being out of control.
Did you spot it? I'll run it back, and I'll tell you what I'm hearing that you may not hear. So, when he says, I don't like being out of control, listen to how he says it. So, he's not saying, I don't like being out of control. He slows down and he sort of pauses, like, I don't like being out of control. That is your subconscious speaking. And that's what the problem is. So you can tell by the tone of his voice, the speed changes. And these are very difficult things to see. If ever you've watched shows by famous hypnotists and you wonder, how do they do this? It's because you can see things that other people can't when you know what to look for. And many people, whenever people speak, they're giving off so much that they don't even realise. So listen to it again and notice how he slows down when he talks about control. The words are slower.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's true. I don't like being out of control.
You notice, very subtle, very, very easy to miss, and most people will just miss that, but that is the subconscious speaking. And this thing I said in the consultation about boom, 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 jackpot, if you watch that, go back and watch that, I'll put a link in the description if I remember. What I was saying now was because he mentioned this thing about a spotlight, which is a metaphor. Now, metaphors come from your subconscious, and at the same time, he put his hands sort of around his face. Now, your hands are your subconscious mind speaking. The reason I said jackpot was because that was his subconscious mind speaking to me with a metaphor and his hands at the same time. And I can guarantee you, 99% of therapists at least would completely miss all of this, because all they're doing is staring down at a piece of paper saying, you are calm, you are entering hypnosis, and you feel so calm, and you are so relaxed. All this absolute rubbish, and they talk non-stop in a session for like 20 or 30 minutes, and it's rubbish, and they're missing all of this because they're waffling on about unicorns and pixies and magic beaches. And the client is giving off all these signals that they're missing. So you just see now the difference between when people say to me, I've been to a therapist and it didn't work. I bet it wasn't like this.
And that sense of being physically out of control. You no matter what, you could not stop right now if you wanted to. That giving into, I guess you need to give into the feeling like you're going to ride it out and it's all going to be fine. And you had this faith. I think people enjoy that, have this faith that it's going to be okay. I guess I just lack that faith that it is going to be okay. And I feel like I want control and I want to stop.
So what makes you lack the faith that it's going to be okay?
Good question.
Now you can almost tell when you're doing a good job as a therapist because the client will say, good question. Because it's like, I can't answer that, I don't know. That's how you get to the root of the problem. Not with the unicorns and the pixies and the stupid stories with soft music in the background. This is how you get to the root of the problem. By talking about it and by the therapist listening. Now again, I'm talking a lot in this video, but in a session, notice how I'm barely speaking because I'm listening to what the client is saying and I'm not waffling on, giving them all this rubbish as though I know the answer when I don't.
I was thinking about this when I watched the your pre-session video.
Yeah. So just to explain, when people work with me, they get access to 2 exclusive videos. One of them is about 40 minutes long and contains tons of stuff that I've never even said on YouTube, on my free videos that is. I may release that one day on YouTube, but it's just like a bit of a client exclusive. And the other one is a pre-session video. Now, if you're watching this in the future, I may or may not be using these things, but I just find it's nice to have some exclusive videos for clients. And it helps them to sort of tell what to expect in a session.
That's a good question. Well, one thing that I kind of identified and I was wondering about is that, so in my younger years, when I realized that I was scared of heights, then I decided that maybe I just need more exposure to heights. I started in high school a rock climbing activity through.
Now here's where I kind of messed up a bit, and again I'm being honest because this is why I do this, to improve myself as well. He just said that when he was younger he had this fear of heights, so he went to this school, this rock climbing thing he's going to talk about soon, to improve it. Now, you don't have to find the very, very first instance of a problem, okay? So we are going to focus on this thing about the rock climbing, but I'll be honest, I actually forgot to go back before that because he said he already had a fear of heights by then. But this is the main point of this video. I want you to listen to the story he tells about what happened in the past, which in a way gave him a fear of driving.
Through the school, which I think got me used to heights. I was never comfortable with heights, but one instance was I saw somebody fall, which was traumatic. So maybe that also had was related
Yeah.
to that fear.
So when you say it's traumatic, what makes you laugh?
I don't know. Maybe to ease the trauma. Yeah, and also it was so long ago, and it makes me, I don't know, laugh at myself. That's something from when I was 16, 17, could still be dictating what's going on in my head at 46.
So when you say it eases the trauma, what trauma is it that you're easing?
Well, the I feel like the trauma of seeing someone fall.
So you saw someone fall, and
Yes.
how did you feel about that?
Terrified. It was like I can still see it in my head, if I think about it. And it added to the like terribleness that I was on a rock wall climbing, and it was out of my periphery that I saw this kid. He was a little older than me, fall. He fell 100 feet, hit a ledge, and then fell another 50 feet, and he amazingly survived. I'm sure he's in a wheelchair or something to this day, but it was seeing someone, and I was on this rock wall, and I looked down, and the whole thing was scary.
Scary. So there's the story. Then this is what the client believes may be the cause of their problem driving down the hill. So you can see what I mean about how you quickly get away from the driving. It's nothing to do with driving at all. That's just when it's coming out. Now this could be the thing that he needs to clear, but it isn't always that simple. So let's continue. You might notice, by the way, a few more times, like when he said about the fear, he kind of swallowed or something. There's other clues coming out that this is very relevant.
Very, yes. So I'm not exactly sure. That's it's maybe related but similar, or maybe unrelated, and I'm just dredging for trauma.
Yeah, you see, all this is conscious stuff. So this is not how you get to the real root cause. This is what people always say to me. They say, look, I found the memory, I know what it is. It's this thing, rock climbing. That's not how you deal with it. So let's carry on. That's what you said, you can see that in your head still.
Yes. The way it looked out of the periphery of my vision, where the kid was going to set up to climb, and I'm already on the rock, and I heard something, and then I saw out of the periphery something falling, and I had thought that it was a bag or something, because it didn't, my mind looked like a human being. I hit this ledge, and I could hear the sound that the guy made, this oof sound, and then he kept falling, and he hit the ground and bounced twice. And it was unreal. And in my mind, it was, one of the few things, like witnessing a car crash or something, you don't believe that it's happening, even though it is happening. Like your brain's watching a movie or something.
So notice how important that is, what he just said. This is really, really important about how he said it's almost like it wasn't happening. What can happen is when you experience something traumatic, you kind of go into a state of denial, like your brain, your mind is almost like, right, I've mentioned this before, it's like, right, you're not going to process that because that would cause you so much stress and pain. I'm going to take that and I'm going to lock that away in a room in your mind, and you're never going to remember exactly what happened. And this is what happens when people say time seemed to stand still. It's your mind kind of hiding stuff, as it were, to kind of keeping it from you so that you don't experience the trauma. But then the problem is, one day in the future, like when you're driving, you access that locked room where the memory is. It comes out, then it gets linked to your driving. When you said you heard him to begin with, what did you hear?
I think I heard him yell when he like slipped off of something, and I think he made some sort of sound, and then he hit that ledge and he made a oomph, like the air was leaving his lungs. He was.
Now that's really important. I want you to remember this. What did he just say? The air leaving his lungs. That becomes really important later on. Again, notice how this stuff will be so easy to miss. That will go over the heads of most people, but later on, that comes back.
Getting smacked so bad.
So, how did that affect you? Do you notice that? Do you notice then, if I run that back, did you notice how he breathed out just after talking about the lungs? He breathes out as though something's happening with his lungs. Watch that back.
It was leaving his lungs. He was getting smacked so bad.
So, how did that affect you?
It didn't. Like I think I went rock climbing afterwards, maybe a few times, but it definitely made me very, I don't know, gun shy and wary. But I felt like I was kind of getting into that as a sport and something I was in some sense excited about, and I'm with a particular group of friends. And then I kind of let that die, that part of me die, and just didn't pursue that.
He let the part of him die and didn't pursue it.
I think probably ultimately because of this, fear.
So you let that part of you die?
In a sense, yeah. At least the very scary, climbing of the ropes. I still messed around on and went up on mountains with friends and stuff like that. But the technical climbing part, yes.
Yeah. So what happened to this part of you that died?
I don't know. I guess maybe it got channeled into other things that I like to do, maybe. But that fear of height and the fear of, I guess maybe that is also this being out of control. Falling is being out of control. It's still there in my head.
So I'm going to skip forward now to a part later on. We're going to go forward to about 29 minutes in. There is a lot of stuff comes up here, but again, if I do all of this, it will be far too long to watch this whole video. I'm going to skip to an important point where I want you to listen to what happens in the next kind of minute and a half or so, next 2 minutes. This is where we get to the sort of crux of the issue. Listen to this.
When I saw that kid fall, how many years ago, I remember thinking and putting myself in that kid's shoes and thinking how easy it would be to do something like fall off a cliff. And that hearing from the folks that were with that kid, that, he was walking to the edge of this cliff to tie a rope, and that it was just dirty, dusty, a little bit of a slope, and he just slipped. And I remember thinking that you probably don't even see it coming.
You don't even see it coming. Now, bear that in mind, and let's continue for about another 40 or 50 seconds. I remember something really important comes up.
This feeling that you probably know, okay, I'm in a situation that's semi-dangerous. I'm near a cliff or something, but you probably don't even see that second right before disaster. You probably don't see it coming. And once it has come, there's nothing you can do. Like there's nothing. It doesn't matter anything you do. It's done, and you didn't even see it coming. And therefore, I feel like.
So I'm going to pause there. Did you notice what he just said? And this again goes back to what I said before in the consultation about boom, 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 jackpot. The reason I felt that was so important in the consultation when he said about people looking at him, and you notice how it's all very visual. He said earlier he could see this in his head, people looking at him, the spotlight, the hands moving. Remember earlier how he said something a little bit more slowly? Well, I'm going to play that back and just listen to the way he says about not seeing it coming. Listen carefully.
There's nothing. It doesn't matter anything you do. It's done, and you didn't even see it coming. And therefore...
Did you notice that? It's different to before, but when I play it back one more time, listen to how he starts to say something, and then he very quickly goes away from it. That is another sign of your subconscious mind speaking, because very often people will say something and they'll be telling like the truth about something, and that's the subconscious mind talking the truth, but then their conscious mind kicks in and drags them away. It's like, oh, you don't want to say that, no, get away from that. You see, one of the great misunderstandings about hypnosis is that people think you go into this trance and you're just stuck in it for ages until someone clicks the fingers. That is nonsense. This is true hypnosis here, what you're seeing. This will confuse many hypnotherapists who will say, well, there is no hypnosis, you haven't done an induction, there's no trance, their eyes aren't closed. All that stuff is amateur nonsense. Right, if you believe that, you don't know what you're doing with hypnosis. I'm going to play it back. Listen to how he says this thing about the not seeing it coming. And it's almost like this, he says, yeah, you won't see it coming, and then blah, 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 blah. So it's very slow, then it speeds up. The speeding up means whatever you said just before that is subconscious. It isn't quite that simple. There's more to it than just that. But listen to the way he says it. Slow, then he speeds up to cover. It's almost like the subconscious is, oh no, you've almost found out the reason, then don't do that, otherwise you might get rid of the problem. Listen carefully.
Anything you do, it's done, and you didn't even see it coming. And therefore, I feel like...
Yeah, it's just like an intake of breath, and it's so subtle, you could easily miss that, and it's so quick. And this is how you get a result. This is why when people come to me and they say, it didn't work, and I've done 2 years of therapy, 20 years of therapy, it's because the therapist has wasted their time talking about all this nonsense that's got nothing to do with it. They're telling you to drive, they're telling you to do exposure therapy. This is how you get to the root of the problem, by listening and by identifying when the subconscious is talking to you, and then you work with that.
Therefore, I feel like part of me has always been thinking, like looking over my shoulder. Is it is the thing that I can't see coming?
Yeah. So, how can you see it coming?
You can't. I think that is the thing that I'm overcome thinking about that I want to see the thing coming that I can't see coming, and that therefore it makes me feel I should be hyper vigilant to see the unseen coming, that, you know, and therefore, yeah, that maybe that's what this thing is when I'm going down a hill, that it's telling me, oh man, you've put yourself in this dangerous situation. Now, like you oh my God, like a second from now, you're going to be out of control, and it will be too late then.
Now, did you spot that? If I run it back, watch his mouth. Did you spot the way he breathed out? And this is going to become really important. So if I run that back, just watch the way he breathed out after he said that. Notice that, the way he breathed out. Now, most sessions have some kind of theme to them, and breathing is going to become the theme of this session. So I'm going to keep playing the video now, and I may not speak for the next 10 minutes or so, because if I remember, the stuff starts to come up about 10 minutes after this. I may run it forwards, we'll just see, but let's play the video and see what the client says next. Like, do you feel this when you didn't fall?
Yeah, I think just the thought process, that knowing that it could be that kid who did fall, he felt just as confident as I felt, even though he was walking right into it. That you don't know until it happens, and that there's no preparation, there's no anything, and that all of a sudden it could be disaster.
So you're saying that you don't see hills coming? Now I want to point out that these questions may sound a bit silly, but sometimes that is all it takes for a breakthrough. Now, as funny as it sounds, you have times when you do this where you just say something back to someone and they will say, I've never thought of it like that before. Like, it just makes them laugh. The way you do this is quite difficult. It's not as simple as just saying something to them. Now, in this case, it didn't have that effect. But sometimes when you say something back to someone in a certain way, it will kind of make them rethink it. Now, if I remember, like I said, the next 8 or 9 minutes, it's pretty much conscious talk. But I want you to watch this, because this is probably the kind of stuff that you may be stuck in if you've got this problem or any kind of driving problem. Let's just listen to what happens.
Kind of. It's when you mean when I'm driving?
Yeah, because you said if you could see it coming,
yeah,
then you could stop it. So don't you see the hill coming?
Yes, but yeah, it's like when I approach the hill, and I'm always, when I'm driving somewhere that is hilly, I always feel the anxiety of when is the next one coming? How big will it be? What is it going to be like? I feel like in my head I have this checklist of the ways that are the characteristics that make this most anxiety ridden. When I see just like even the edge of a hill, or are we going to start going down now? I start to feel that anxiety, and and it's building the whole time.
So how does knowing all of that help?
It doesn't help.
So if it doesn't help, what is it you need to know to help?
I feel like the thinking part of my brain would say that I need to remember that, I've gone down 1,000 hills of various steepnesses and various this, that, and the other things, and I've lived, and every time I push the brake, it has worked. The thinking part of my brain knows that.
So I've just run the video forward a few minutes, and I want you to listen to what happens now, because this is where we get to the really important stuff.
My brain gives that thing more sway, more oxygen.
Oxygen. So remember we said before, this thing about breathing was going to become important. And when you're doing a session, this is what you're listening out for, a theme. It's almost as though his subconscious mind is giving me clues, and it's saying, look, Paul, these are the clues. If you pull these together and spot them, then we'll fix this. So he said a few things about breathing, about oxygen, but let's carry on. And something really important is going to come up now. another important thing.
Than it deserves, knowing that driving is dangerous. But I would say that I want it to confine itself to truly dangerous situations.
So, is he willing to do that?
Yes.
So it's 100% on board, no doubts.
Maybe doubts, but...
Now this is really important because we picked up here, and you could tell from his body language, the way that he didn't answer yes straight away. There was a bit of a pause, and that's why I asked him, are you sure? Because sometimes what clients will do is people naturally want to be nice to each other, normally, most of the time. And if you're doing a session with a therapist, especially when it's being recorded and you're aware people are going to watch it, you kind of want it to work, and you kind of want to not show them up and make them look stupid. So I'm aware of that, and this is really important because I could have, if I play it back just a bit, I could have easily just kind of taken this as success when it's not. So we could have gone like this.
Yes.
So play it back a bit, listen to this.
To confine itself.
So he said he wants the problem to confine itself. Let's play this, and this is how a bad therapist would end the session. So it will go like this. They'd ask the client, how do you feel about the problem?
The truly dangerous situations.
So is he willing to do that?
Yes.
Great, so we finished the session. Well done, thanks. Your problem's gone. Bye. No. You can tell from the look on his face when I've paused it, that's not a real yes. You must always be careful to finish a session off. Even when you've found the problem and dealt with it, you very often will not get a result. So I'm going to play the video now for a bit more, and let's just see where it goes. So it's 100% on board, no doubts. Look at how he answers this. I mean, he does say there's doubts, but see how it's not a definite yes. A definite yes would normally come out straight away, but watch this.
Maybe doubts?
Maybe doubts. So it's not a result. And if we had just stopped there, then the problem would have just continued.
But on board.
So what doubts does it have?
I think if it had a personality, it would still be this, overly worrying being where it's saying you're basing your analysis on how dangerous this is based on past experience. And past experience is only capturing the variation that you've experienced in your life, and that the greater world encompasses greater variation than that. That there are roads that you haven't driven on, hills you haven't driven on, situations you haven't dealt with, and I, as the anxiety blob of red.
Just to explain this, there's a part you might not have seen where he just said something about my anxiety is like this red blob. He says, I just imagine it like this red blob on his chest. Again, remember what we said, breathing, oxygen, red blob on his chest. Do you see how it's starting to all kind of come together? Let's carry on.
It's just, telling you, watch out, heads up, this might be catastrophically, terrible.
And a quick point, this is what I mean when I say problems always have a positive intention. This problem just wants him to be good at driving, to be safe. So it's not an evil, bad thing. It thinks it's doing a good job.
And it might lay outside the realm of experience that you've had, and I'm trying to help you.
So, how can you have had every experience in the world?
Impossible.
So if you haven't had every experience in the world, how does he know what's dangerous and what's not?
It doesn't. I think it would say something like the better safe than sorry, something like that. Let's better to worry than not, or something ridiculous like that.
You notice a lot of this, although he's talking about what he thinks the problem will be saying, this is actually all his conscious thoughts. So I'll play for a bit more, then there's another bit I'll probably skip because we do something again I don't really want to show, which I'll cover in another video, because some of this stuff I will put into separate videos, otherwise this will be far too long. But let's just run it through. So, what else does he worry about? When I'm saying what else does it worry about, we're talking about the problem. So I don't mean, I'm not calling the client it, I'm talking about the problem. And there is a good reason we do that, which I won't go into now, because it's far too much to talk about in one video. But there's a very good reason why we phrase the question in that way.
I feel like there are like that's that the heights and the driving is I feel like it worries at this red hot worry. I feel like in the rest of my life, sure, there's definitely a part of my brain that worries about worst case scenarios in terms of, regular daily life.
Again, don't believe any of this. This is all conscious stuff. This means nothing. Not being rude to him. It's just, this is all conscious talk. This won't fix the problem.
But I think it's my brain is able to kind of game out, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it's not that bad. And therefore that it's a manageable kind of argument with myself, where this is like, it's so overpowering, it's not manageable.
Notice again, he breathed out there. It's all about breathing. This again is his subconscious, almost in a way saying, well, everything he just said was rubbish. This is what the problem really is. But most people, again including me, in the past would have focused on what he just said. The breath is what's important. So whenever you forward now...
Sorry, that's something in the air handling.
That's fine. You notice how he says something about the air handling. This is a really important point. Some people, many people, in fact, believe that when you do hypnosis, it has to be quiet. And I was taught, if you cough during a hypnosis session, you'll bring the client out of the trance, and you'll ruin the trance, and you'll ruin the session, and you've got to start all over again. What a load of rubbish. Right, hypnosis can be done anywhere. It can be done in a nightclub with music blaring. It can be done with dogs barking, people cutting the grass. Someone can tap on the door, then go and get a delivery, and then come back and continue. It's not this fragile state that people think it is. So, yes, it's easier if it's quiet and it's calm and it's easier to concentrate, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm glad that came in. So I'm going to carry on for a bit, and there are some more important points coming up.
I think the younger me...
Now this is something we were just talking about. We skipped through this part of the video, but he was talking about the younger him, like when he was younger, doing this rock climbing thing. And I just said something about what would that younger you say to you now, or something.
Would say, yes, true, that 99.999% of people go through these experiences and are fine and don't have a catastrophe. But boy, wasn't that catastrophe so horrible? Like, seeing it, wasn't that so horrible? Seeing a body bounce. And
as again, he's saying about this horrific event, but he's laughing. That doesn't add up, does it? He's laughing. There's something in that because it doesn't match that he's saying this horrific thing, but you're laughing, and he did say himself earlier on, it's to cover up the trauma. So there's something in that.
It making complete sense that the way that it was falling, that it was going to bounce, and it bounced, and like how horrendous that was. Yeah, how.
Notice that. If I play that back, did you notice how horrendous he was? Watch his eyes when he says that. Again, this is trance. This is hypnosis happening for a few seconds. Watch.
Yeah.
That's hypnosis. That's what it is. It's not about staying like that for 20 minutes as somebody talks to you about how calm you feel when you drive. You go in and out of hypnosis every day. And I've done another video I'll link to about that, where hypnosis isn't what people think it is. Everyone does it every day, a lot. So let's carry on. And I'm going to skip forward, I think, a bit. Yeah, because I'm going to skip forward to a part which is important.
Oh.
So this part's important because if I put that graph up again on the screen, the one that we had earlier of the sound, you may well say, well, where is the trance? Where's the hypnosis? Well, as I mentioned, it only has to happen for a few seconds sometimes even less than that. But if you look at the chart, the graph, whatever, on the right, about 3/4 of the way across, and then again about 90% of the way across to the right, you'll see two flat lines. And at the bottom, that's my speech. The line's flat as well. So that is the trance. And if you watch now what happens, he's going to do a bit of trance work here. So I've skipped forward again, and I want to show you something really important here. He's doing a bit of just quiet thinking. He's just having to think about things. But I want you to listen to what happens in about 14 seconds time. Listen to what he says, and I'll explain it more.
I feel like the main thing that I would change is slowing it down.
Now, slowing it down, notice how that is his solution, not me. I haven't said to him, I want you to slow it down. Because isn't that an obvious solution? You think, well, if you're not going down hills too fast or whatever, why can't you slow things down? But if you just say that, if you go into a session and say, hey, so you don't like going down hills, I know, why don't you just slow things down? It won't work. It will just bounce straight off. That's his solution to his problem.
I feel like that is the thing that scares me the most, is that it happens so fast, that this sort of catastrophe happens faster than we as human beings are able to think and or react. That like if you can slow something down, like a video, to the time frame that we are able to react and therefore avoid and therefore make allowances for, whatever, and prevent catastrophe, that is what makes it less terrible and anxiety inducing.
So his solution is to slow things down, but notice what I say next. So what stops you from slowing things down?
Reality. that I can't, that things would happen, things do happen faster than I can react.
So if that's the case, then how will this part ever do its job?
Yeah. I think, well, I think the way that everyone else goes through.
So notice how there, what I've done is I've simply asked him, he was saying that he wanted to slow things down, and I've just said, this part of you that gives you the problem, how would it do its job if you slow things down? So he's simply kind of mashing together his ideas. And this is not necessarily the best example of this, but what you often do in a session is the client will tell you two things that don't match. They've got kind of two ideas that just can't exist. Like, I love driving, but I hate driving. And what we do, I always imagine this as kind of like putting the two things in a boxing ring, and it's almost like they fight it out, and there's a winner, and that's normally the one that you want, or the solution, being able to drive, because it kind of beats the other thing. Not the best example. I'll do more of these if I can, and I'll show you more examples in the future.
Life, as much as I can guess by watching people go through their lives.
So I'm going to skip forward a bit, because again, it's just a bit of talk here.
I cannot slow down reality such that I can avoid these extremely fast catastrophes from happening.
So you see, he's realising there that his solution won't work because he can't slow down time. So this is important because, again, if you just find a solution and then you end the session, what if that solution doesn't work? It didn't work. Obviously, you can't slow down time. So we found another way of making it work. And I want you to skip forward a bit. I'm going to show you a part which is coming up. It's around here. This is, again, is for anyone who's wondering, where's the hypnosis, where's the trance? I want you to watch his eyelids when his trance thing comes up. Just watch. In a moment. Might be a bit later on in this, but let's keep watching. Fairly standard, but watch his eyelashes in a moment. See that? They're fluttering, 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 fluttering. This is processing. This is what we call REM. Not always, but sometimes it can be REM, rapid eye movement. So rapid eye movement is what happens when you sleep, and it's like your mind processing things. So when you see someone with their eyelids fluttering like that, that's a great sign of hypnosis. And I'll keep this playing, and I want you to notice.
Okay.
So what's happened to it now? Notice now he's found a better solution. So let's see what he's come up with.
Then a deep hole.
So more importantly, what's in its place where it used to be? What's there now?
Yeah, I was trying to picture me as I am without that thing on top of my chest. Free of the weighted red blanket of anxiety.
No, you hear what he said, free of the weighted red blanket of anxiety. You won't have heard some of that before, but he said earlier, one of the parts I skipped over, something about this red blanket on his chest. So again, let me remind you of the theme. Oxygen, lungs, breathing. Remember, he said when the person fell, they heard the oof sound, which was them breathing out. This heavy blanket. It's all about breathing and his chest and feeling lighter. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know what that means. And this is how you can tell when therapy is going well, because it won't make sense. And I've said this before. If you do a session and it all adds up and it all makes logical sense and it all ties together nicely, you failed. If you come out of a session not knowing what has just happened and what this red blob and blanket and oxygen and lungs, what's any of that got to do with anything, then that's when you've got much more chance of having success, because the subconscious mind is not logical. And I've said this before in other videos. A massive mistake made by clients and therapists is they always want it to make sense. It doesn't have to make sense, okay? Think about it. If your problem doesn't make any sense, why would the answer? So it doesn't have to make sense. And so many people, when I tell them that, say, well, that doesn't make sense. And I explain, look, your problem is illogical. It comes from the subconscious. And you explain all this, and you explain how the subconscious mind works in symbols and metaphors. And everyone just says, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's the whole point. Stop wanting things to make sense, because they won't. When you work as a hypnotherapist, you have to accept that much of what you do will not make any sense whatsoever. And I often walk away from a session thinking, what just happened? And I'll give you another kind of tip now. I don't want to talk for too long, but actually I'll save that for another video. I'm going to save that for another time. So let's carry on with this. So as you imagine now, what is the...
I feel like it's this lightness, like, and lightness and I don't know, a like sense of kind of, I don't know, not relaxation, but of a lightness in my hands and arms, where in the past it was this, white knuckle, clenched fists.
So again, the client's saying lightness, and it feels different to before. What does this mean? I don't know. Why do his hands, arms, whatever feel lighter? I don't know. You don't have to know. I'm going to skip forward a little bit, and I'm going to show you a part where, just listen to this, watch in the next kind of 30 seconds or so, watch what happens.
And then finally, it's the bottom, and feeling some sense of like, okay, did it. And went down that without freaking out.
So, how did you know that you could do that? No.
Feel like by taking that off.
So you notice that? He breathed out and said, by taking that off. Again, it's all about breath, oxygen, lungs. He went, by taking it off. He's taking the problem off his chest so he can breathe better. Now, this is where people go wrong. It's not about breathing exercises, because if you get someone who told you, oh, if you feel anxiety, just breathe in, breathe out, be calm, take nice deep breaths. Nothing to do with that. Yes, it's about breathing, but breathing exercises won't get rid of this problem. And I'm going to run it forward, play it just a little bit more. There's a massive point for me to make in about 10 or 12 seconds. Watch this.
By taking the weighted blanket off my chest.
Notice that? He goes, now, this again is for anyone who's been to a therapist and they've just sat looking down at their lap, reading off a piece of paper these stupid stories, what we call scripts. So many therapists will go online, and when they have a client, let's say they see everyone. That's one of the first mistakes they make. They see people for weight loss, insomnia, pain control, fear of driving, fear of flying. They just do everything, and all they do is they go online and they'll search for hypnotherapy script for and then a problem. So hypnotherapy script for driving anxiety, hypnotherapy script for fear of flying, and I will just sit and read the story. The client is my script. I don't read the script, I read the client. That's what I've been doing throughout this video, and that is how you get success. What's that there when you go? Now you notice I picked up on that. This is what I said earlier. I didn't mention it earlier, but I said to him, what's that there? What's that? Let's see what answer he gives, because I've asked him about something he did subconsciously. So let's see what answer he gives.
Yep, it's feeling like the lungs can do their job without.
Oh yeah. Well, what happened with your lungs? Because you mentioned your lungs earlier.
Yeah, that when I would feel that tension, I would feel like I can't breathe all the way. That there's so much tension, and it just constricts. And that now it's more open.
Notice again, he breathes out, and he's saying it's more open. But this is why I'm laughing, because some people just do breathing exercises. I haven't got him to do breathing exercises. We've gone into his subconscious and found what the problem truly was, and that's what releases the breathing. It's nothing to do with breathing exercises. So here's another example coming up of the breathing. Watch this.
And it was almost a feeling like the hill is something to be fought. And won or something. And somehow it could break me, and then somehow it get the best of me.
Now this is what I've said in the videos as well. I've got many videos if you haven't watched my others, but I've said very often about you don't fight the problem. You're not fighting anxiety. You're not beating it. That's a completely wrong way to look at it. He's just said he's not fighting the hills, because if you see it as fighting the problem, you'll just make it worse, because you're not fighting anything. It's a part of you that's doing this for a good reason. So I'm going to skip forward again to one last bit that I want to show you, because you might think we fixed this, but we haven't. Because beware of early jubilation. So I've just asked him here to think about driving on the hills and listen to what comes up.
I feel like still it's definitely not, I feel like it's more manageable, but still the thought of a steep hill on some sort of open area where I can see.
You see, so he's found another part of the problem. Problems do not just exist on their own. There's still little things coming up. You have to get all of these little things, because if you don't, then they'll just pop back up as a problem. If you want a logical explanation for this, I'm going to explain what I believe happened with this client, but please bear in mind, we don't know this for sure. We'll never know for sure. This is just our best guess. You may remember on the consultation, I laughed when the client said about how when the boy pushed him down the water slide, he'd said something like, "Hold on, this is going to be fast," or "There's going to be a drop," or something like that. So when you're in a state of fear or panic, as the client said he was, because his fear of heights had already started that before the water slide began, the boy saying to him, "This is going to be fast," was actually a hypnotic suggestion. That's what fired up the feelings from the past in his mind, and that's why I laughed, because that boy, without knowing it, probably gave him this whole driving problem. And you see how sometimes people ask me, what can I do to avoid ever having driving anxiety? Well, nothing, because it can happen to anyone at any time. I mean, there's no way that boy could possibly have known that saying that would give him driving anxiety years later. And I'd also like to point out that at the time of recording this, I don't know the result of this session. So what I'm going to do is I will put this in the description, or I may ask the client to record a video and I'll post that in the link in the description. And at the end of this one, check out these other videos on the screen now for more information about how to overcome your fears. If you'd like to work with me online from anywhere in the world, check out my website, firstdrive.com. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please let me know. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.